Hi, I'm Andy Miochen. You're watching A News. Here are the headlines. UN General Assembly demands immediate Gaza ceasefire. France pulls 2 fighter jets from Chad, signaling start of military withdrawal. Somalia and Ethiopia agreed to resolve Somaliland and sea access issue at the Turkish mediated talks in Ankara. Thank you for tuning in. As the war in Gaza rages on, the United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution demanding an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, as well as the immediate release of all hostages.
Resolution A/ES
158 countries out of 193 backed UN resolution calling for peace in Gaza. The resolution's passing came after months of mounting pressure from countries around the world, highlighting the dire humanitarian crisis unfolding in the region after October 7, 2023.
The result of the vote is as follows.
Gaza today is the bleeding heart of Palestine and open, painful wound for the human family. Stop the bleeding and restore life in Gaza, so it can be once again the beating heart of Palestine. Stop the bleeding so we can restore credibility to our international system, so we can ensure it for future generations, so our people can live, so our region can thrive, so that international peace and security can be preserved.
Gaza doesn't exist anymore. It is destroyed. Palestinians are facing hunger, despair, and death.
However, the decision was met with sharp criticism from nations like the US and Israel, which argued that the resolution oversimplifies the complex situation and fails to address key issues.
The messages we send to the world through these resolutions matter, and both of these resolutions have significant problems. One rewards Hamas and downplays the need to release the hostages, and the other denigrates Israel without providing a path forward to increasing humanitarian assistance to Palestinian civilians.
Israel's UN ambassador Danny Danon also mentioned that the resolution doesn't protect humanitarian values.
By voting for these resolutions, you are not voting to protect humanitarian values, but to protect an organization that has become a haven for terror. You vote for the resolutions knowing the truth, knowing that UNRWA is not a neutral actor, but an entity hopelessly infiltrated by Hamas.
The UN rejects accusations that the UN Relief and Works Agency of being infiltrated by Hamas and maintains that UNRWA provides essential services to millions of Palestinians.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in the Middle East for talks following major developments in Syria. Blinken met Jordan's King Abdullah in Aqaba, starting a crisis tour after the overthrow of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Washington is focused on Syria's political transition, securing chemical weapons, and ensuring humanitarian aid. Blinken will also visit Turkey to discuss Syria's future and regional tensions, including conflicts in Gaza and Lebanon. Meanwhile, Damascus is gradually returning to normal as businesses reopen following the lifting of a curfew. With Mohammed al-Bashir leading a transitional government, Syrians hope for stability and recovery.
Following the lifting of the curfew, businesses in Damascus, including the historic Hamidiyya Bazaar, are gradually resuming operations. New flags symbolizing the interim government are now displayed across Syria, marking a shift in the country's political landscape.
Hamidiyya Bazaar was opened 2 days ago. We had 2 days of chaos in the country, and we were cautious. Now we have reopened the bazaar, and it is like it was before, and it will be better.
I hope that those who live abroad and miss their home and family can come back. It is safe here. Our bazaar is now open and we are doing fine.
Mohammed al-Bashir, appointed to head the transitional government until March 2025, chaired a meeting with former Assad officials to discuss transferring government responsibilities. His priorities include restoring security, repatriating refugees, and rebuilding the country after years of conflict and sanctions. Despite concerns over Syria's future, the transitional government aims to stabilize the country and restore essential services.
Over in South Korea, President Yoon Suk-yeol has vowed to fight until the end against attempts to remove him from office, defending his martial law declaration as vital for the country's democracy. Meanwhile, a new impeachment vote, after the previous failed, is expected Saturday.
President of South Korea, Yoon Suk-yeol, defended his brief declaration of martial law, which lasted just 6 hours before being overturned by parliament. He called it a necessary measure to protect the country from anti-state forces and preserve South Korea's democracy.
We must prevent the forces and criminal groups that have led the paralysis of government administration and disorder of national constitution from taking over the state administration and threatening the future of the Republic of South Korea. No matter what, I will fight to the end.
Police attempted to raid his office again on Thursday, following an earlier failed attempt blocked by presidential security. It remains unclear whether the second raid was successful. Speculation about early elections grew as the ruling party appointed Yoon ally Kwen Song-dong as its new floor leader, who hinted at preparations for a potential presidential election.
Still in South Korea, the National Assembly has voted to impeach the National Police Chief and the Justice Minister over the short-lived declaration of martial law. Their duties will be suspended until the Constitutional Court decides on whether to uphold the impeachment motion. At the same time, investigators have requested arrest warrants for the commissioners of the national and Seoul police agencies. France has pulled 2 fighter jets out of Chad, signaling the end of the defense cooperation agreement between the two countries. Chad's decision to end military cooperation will see the complete withdrawal of French troops from the country.
France has started withdrawing its military forces from Chad with the departure of 2 warplanes stationed in N'Djamena, the capital, the French army announced. The specifics of the withdrawal, including whether any French troops will remain in Chad, are still under negotiation. However, on Tuesday, the first Mirage fighter jets returned to their base in eastern France. This move comes after France had already withdrawn troops from Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger due to military coups and growing anti-French sentiment in those countries. Currently, around 1,000 French troops remain in Chad. Army spokesman Chinese Isaka Ahik confirmed the departure of the French warplanes and stated that updates on the withdrawal would be shared with the public until the complete departure of French forces. However, a French envoy recently presented President Emmanuel Macron with a report suggesting ways to scale back France's military presence in Chad, Gabon and Ivory Coast.
Over in Turkey, Somalia and Ethiopia have agreed on a joint declaration to resolve their dispute over the breakaway region of Somaliland and landlocked Ethiopia's push for sea access. After negotiations mediated by Ankara, Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud reached common ground. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called the agreement a historic milestone. The two countries have seen tensions escalate since Ethiopia struck a deal with Somalia's breakaway region of Somaliland to lease a stretch of its coastline for an Ethiopian port back in January, which Somalia branded a violation of its sovereignty. In the largest single-day act of clemency in modern U.S. history, President Joe Biden pardoned 39 Americans convicted of nonviolent crimes and commuted the sentences of roughly 1,500 people. Biden is reportedly also considering preemptive pardons for officials and allies who the White House fears could be unjustly targeted by President-elect Donald Trump's administration.
United States President Joe Biden has announced a historic clemency action, commuting the sentences of 1,500 individuals. They were on home confinement during the coronavirus pandemic. The president is also pardoning 39 people convicted of non-violent offenses. This unprecedented clemency decision is the largest single-day act of its kind in modern United States history. In addition to this, Joe Biden is considering preemptive pardons for individuals who may face retribution under the incoming Donald Trump administration. These potential pardons could protect figures like Dr. Anthony Fauci, a key player in the U.S. response to the coronavirus pandemic, and others who might be targeted by politically motivated investigations. Biden's team is deliberating over issuing these pardons even before charges have been filed, a move that would set a significant precedent. The discussion around preemptive pardons also comes in the context of Joe Biden's recent decision to pardon his son, Hunter Biden, for federal thugs and gun violations. Hunter Biden's legal troubles had drawn attention, and the president's pardon extends not only to those offenses but to any potential future charges. Biden's decision is viewed as a protective measure against possible legal action from the Trump administration. While the pardoning power is a constitutional right of the president, some analysts argue that Biden's potential preemptive pardons are a unique and controversial use of this authority, raising questions about its implications for the future administrations.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has invited Chinese President Xi Jinping to attend his inauguration on January 20th. The invitation was extended in early November, but it remains unclear if Xi has accepted. The Chinese embassy in Washington declined to comment. Tensions between the two countries were heightened after Trump threatened imposing blanket tariffs on Chinese goods over drug smuggling into the U.S. China has since said that a tariff war would damage both economies. 17 years after Romania and Bulgaria joined the European Union, they have been given the green light to become full members of its border-free Schengen travel zone. The decision made today by fellow EU member states means that from the start of 2025, citizens of the two countries will be able to cross land borders without a passport. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said it was a day of joy. Although border checks were lifted on travel by air and sea for the two countries last March, it was only last month that Austria lifted its veto on ending border checks by land. The International Energy Agency has forecasted a significant oil supply surplus for 2025, even as OPEC Plus extends production cuts and demand projections rise modestly.
The International Energy Agency expects a 950,000 barrels per day oil surplus next year, nearly 1% of global output. This comes after OPEC Plus, which includes the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and other major hydrocarbon exporters like Russia, extended its production cuts until April 2025. The projected surplus is visualized in the chart, showing global oil supply at 101.95 million barrels per day compared to global oil demand at 101 million barrels per day, with a visible surplus of 0.95 million barrels per day. China's economic slowdown and rising adoption of electric vehicles have curbed oil demand this year. However, recent stimulus measures from Beijing have prompted the International Energy Agency to revise its 2025 global oil demand growth forecast to 1.1 million barrels per day, up from 990,000 barrels per day. Meanwhile, OPEC Plus has delayed planned output increases to April 2025 and extended production adjustments through the end of 2026, citing weak demand and rising output from outside the group. If OPEC Plus unwinds cuts as planned in March 2025, the International Energy Agency predicts the surplus could grow to 1.5 million barrels per day. For 2024, The International Energy Agency has lowered its demand growth projection to 840,000 barrels per day, an 80,000 barrels per day reduction from last month. While the International Energy Agency remains cautious about future demand, OPEC has expressed more optimism despite trimming its own forecast for 2023 and 2024.
Global business economy could face reductions in annual earnings by 7% by 2035 amid escalating climate hazards, the World Economic Forum reported. The report warns that delays in addressing climate risks could lead to disruptions similar to those caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, resulting in losses up to $610 billion annually for telecommunications, utilities, and energy industries. Companies in energy-intensive sectors are also facing increasing challenges from tightening global regulations, with carbon pricing alone potentially cutting earnings by half by 2030. Saudi Arabia has been confirmed as the host of the 2034 FIFA World Cup. The announcement was met with celebration across the nation as citizens expressed their excitement and pride.
Saudi Arabia will become the second Middle Eastern nation to host the 2034 FIFA World Cup, following Qatar's 2022 World Cup. The announcement was made by FIFA President Gianni Infantino in Zurich. The announcement has sparked a wave of enthusiasm throughout Saudi Arabia. People flooded the streets of Riyadh, enjoying fireworks and a drone show in celebration.
I'm 25 years old and never expected, even 1%, that the World Cup would be held in Saudi Arabia. The hosting is truly impressive and will greatly change life in Saudi Arabia.
For the first time, 48 teams will be part of this global football event, and Saudi Arabia will host it. It's exceptional and beautiful. We wish for success, God willing.
With plans for a 92,000 capacity stadium in Riyadh already in motion, Saudi Arabia is set to deliver a world-class World Cup experience.
Near the border of Brazil and Argentina, the famous Iguazu Falls walkway has reopened after being temporarily closed due to high water flow caused by heavy rains.
The Iguazu Falls walkway is open again. It was closed because heavy rains caused very high water flow. The water volume went up to 8.50 million liters per second. This is more than 5 times the normal amount. Tourists expressed surprise and awe at the dramatic increase in water volume, with some describing it as the most impressive they had seen in years. It was a surprise for us to arrive here and see this amount of water. It's not the first time I've come to Iguazu. I've been coming for 3 years in a row, more or less at this time of the year. But this is the first time we saw that much water. We can feel the size of the wonderful nature in Brazil and this beautiful thing that is the Falls of Foz. A technical inspection confirmed the safety of the site, allowing visitors to return as water levels remained high but controlled.
There has been a significant increase. Normally, we have 1,500 cubic meters per second, and today we had an increase that exceeded 8,000 cubic meters per second.
The Iguazu National Park Administration stated the increase was due to rain-fed rivers flowing into the Iguazu River, which runs through the Argentina-Brazil border.
Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thanks for tuning in and keep watching A News.